we classify the triangle, if it has 3 acute angles, what type of triangle do we have?
Isosceles.
Not isosceles. 3 acute angles. It's an acute triangle. We didn't go too far with this idea. So if it's 3 acute angles, it's an acute triangle.
Put it that way.
It's too easy of a question. What about one obtuse angle? What do you suppose we call it?
Obtuse
Obtuse triangle. Very good.
I can't even talk.
The next one,
If there's one right angle, we call it a
right angle triangle.
We call it a right triangle. Yes.
Right triangle.
What about if it's 3 congruent angles?
Equilateral.
You would think, but no. Equiangular.
Oh, equal angular. What's an equilateral?
It's also going to be equilateral, but when we talk about the angles, classified by the angles, it's equiangular. That could be a new term for you, depending on what your teacher went over. So if it's 3 acute angles, it's an acute triangle. If there's one obtuse angle, it's an obtuse triangle. 1 right angle, right triangle, and then 3 congruent is equiangular. It's a strange word, but it's equal angles, equiangular. What's up? Well, when we go down, notice that this is classifying triangles by the angles. So if I'm asking you to classify by angles, these are the words that you use. But when we get down to sides, that's when you'll see that equilateral. But all equiangulars are equilateral. Nate, what's your question?
I ain't got one answer.
Alright, so now looking at this, we're going to classify it by its angles. It's very, very important that when it says classify by angles, you're using one of these words. So if I'm looking at triangle CDE, right here, CDE, how do I classify this by our angles? Yes, it has a right angle, so it's going to be a right triangle.
Woo!
Alright, then triangle BCE. Triangle BCE, what do you suppose that is?
That's obtuse.
Obtuse, very good, because we have at angle C is obtuse, so it's an obtuse triangle. And then we're going to go on to triangle ABE.
That was
Equiangular.
Equiangular,
Yeah.
very good. So equal angles would be equiangular. Now we have triangle BDE. Very good. And then we have CFE. How do you know it's acute?
Because it's right. No.
Yeah, you can
No,
see
it's
this right angle, and it's cutting the right angle, so it has to be less than that, because that right angle is going all the way
Right,
down
so
to
it's
the
acute. So why?
Why did I make you
Yeah.
go a little bit further with it?
Right, because I just looked at it and I was like, that's cute. I know it is.
I knew you were good enough for a harder question. Alright, so now we're switching to sides. So again, we have our words for angles and we have our words for sides. If we have 3 congruent sides, what do we call that?
That's fine.
Equilateral.
Equilateral.
That's fine.
Next one is obtuse.
So the way I try to remember it is it sounds like equiangular. You hear the word angle in it, and lateral, I think like L length.
Yeah, lateral.
Yeah.
Lateral. 2 congruent sides, what do we call that? There's 2 congruent sides.
Obtuse.
We're not looking at the angles anymore. We're talking about the sides. So if there's 2 congruent sides, what do we call that?
Someone used this earlier.
Isosceles. Good.
Oh, I saw.
What? Isosceles.
I saw.
That is a big word.
All right, now what about no congruent sides?
Triangle.
Everything's
not
always
just
triangle.
Starts with an S, no congruent sides.
I forgot. I know what you're talking about.
Do you remember this one?
Scalene.
You're so close. Scalene.
Oh, okay.
Scalene is no congruent sides. So now if you look at 6 through 8, they're asking you to classify it based on its sides. And make sure that you are looking at what you're supposed to be using. And keep those word lists separate in your mind. So if we have triangle JKM,
Equilateral.
Scalene.
It is scalene, good, because you have no congruent sides.
Oh, wait.
The next one.
Oh, one, so I guess people are catching up.
Would that one be isosceles?
She said not to answer it yet.
But I'm gonna go. I'm just trying to be ahead.
I was gonna answer it. She said not to.
Alright, guys, you need to stop. Calm down. I am recording all this. We have triangle KLN. What do you notice about KL and LN? Yeah, I mean, they're both congruent, right? Well, we know if it's two congruent sides that it has to be isosceles. Alright, and then we have JKN. What do you notice about JKN? Yeah, all three are equal except that single tick mark. So what would I call this one?
Equilateral.
Very good. Equilateral. Now in geometry, we study the relationship between the angles and their opposite sides. So if you have three congruent sides, automatically the opposite angles are equal to each other, making it equiangular. And eventually this goes into trigonometry, which is the study of the angles in proportion to the sides. So all this kind of threads together when we're talking about the triangle. If you have scalene, so you have no congruent sides, that means the opposite angles, none of them can be equal. So if I give you three different angle measures to match up with the triangle's angles, then it's going to be scalene, because if your angles are all different, the sides have to be all different. If you have two congruent angles, it's going to have two congruent sides. Because of that relationship, it's, by the way it opens up, it's going to lengthen that side. And that is the study of trigonometry, which hopefully we'll get into a little bit before you guys end the semester. Alright, so now we're going to classify each triangle by its angles and its sides. So you're going to have two words for each of these. So naming triangles, down at 9 through 11. By its angles, what would you call number 9? So classify it by its angles first. By its angles specifically, you're right about the sides. It is a right, so it's a right angle. And then Mason's right, this one's going to be isosceles because it has two congruent angles. Number 10, let's start with the angles. If we have an angle of 114 degrees, what type do we have based on the angle?
Triangle.
It is an obtuse, good. What do you suppose we would say based on its sides? None of the sides are marked.
Scalene.
It is scalene, right, but they're none marked, then it's all different. Then it's scalene. How about number 11?
Equilateral.
Very good, all sides are equal. So that would be the side. What about the angle? What did you say that?
Equiangular.
Equiangular, very good. And I want you to use equiangular over acute. It is true that it's an acute, but the equiangular takes precedence, and you need to name it equiangular. If you call it acute, you're missing the bigger issue, and you will lose a point. Even though it is acute, it's more specifically equiangular. Any questions on classifying? All right, you on your own try 12 through 14. On the next page, on your own. All right, number 13, what do we have?
Right scalene.
Right scalene, very good. How about number 14?
Obtuse isosceles.
Very good.
Yeah.
How did we get isosceles? Can somebody explain that? Trent?
Would it be because of the 2 5?
Yeah, they both are 5 feet. They're marking them as 5 feet, so they have to be congruent based on the fact that they both have a 5. And then there's no way that the other side looks like 5 feet. And it would be written if it was to help you classify it. All right, number 15, we have triangle UQR. What did you get for UQR?
Obtuse isosceles.
Obtuse isosceles is perfect. How about triangle RST?
Equilateral, equiangular.
Very good. What's wrong, Nathan? Alright. Number 16, you said equilateral and equiangular. Remember, if it's equiangular, that trumps the acute classification. It's true that all equiangular have to be a cube because 180 degrees is split evenly, and they're all 360, which makes it a cube, but it's more specifically equiangular. So make sure you are using that word over a cube. How about number 17, triangle SRQ?
Right isosceles.
It's actually,
Scalene.
yes, right scalene. Good. There's a right angle and all three sides are not equal. How about number 18? Triangle PRQ.
Isosceles.
Very good. It is obtuse. What's wrong? Okay, then quit being so excitable. What was it? Obtuse and
Isosceles.
it was isosceles. Good. How about triangle TQU?
Acute. Scalene.
Triangle TQU. That was not quite right. Let's look at that one. So TQU is right here. We know that these two are equal, and they mark this one as 8. So this one would also have to be 8.
So it'd be a cube.
So then we have, I'm going to pause that thought 1 second. We have 60. If this one's 120, what's this one have to be?
120. Hold on.
They add up to 180. Keep going, Nate.
Keep going. You're on the right track. 120. 180 minus 120 is
60, yeah. So this one's also 60. So how many degrees do we have in a triangle?
180.
180. So if I have two that are 60, what would the third angle equal?
60.
60. So if I now have three congruent angles, and I know that the sides opposite are always going to be congruent. So if the side opposite here is 8, this one has to be 8. So you had to do some more thinking on that one. They didn't mark it all for you, but they gave you enough information to get there. So now that all our sides are 8, all of our angles are 60, what do we have?
Very equilateral and equiangular.
Very good. Equal. I'm going to write the angular first. Alright, did everybody follow that on number 19? Great. Number 20, what did you guys get?
Acute. Scalene.
It is going to be right because we have this angle right here, and the vertical angle will also be right because they're equal. So that makes it a right triangle. And then we have a side that's 16, 8, and then we have this unknown side, but it looks so much longer, and it can't be equal to 16 because it's a right angle, so it has to be scalene. Alright, any questions on that section?